I was 10, 11, 12, I don't remember, in line for the movies. And there were two guys in line in front of us, like 3 or 4 people in front of us holding hands. And my mother pulled me to her, not my siblings, just me, and looked at my father and said, "They're weird," which just made me look at those guys and I went, oh, now I get it. I'm weird like they're weird. And I looked at them and I thought, they look happy, they look like they're in love. I'll be fine.
Inform brings you incredible stories.
I left 2 days before the revolution. It killed me so hard.
James has never experienced the taste of fruits that haven't been attacked by pesticides, just like he's never experienced a neighborhood that hasn't been attacked by bullets. Some things just go hand in hand.
People say what's on their mind.
I think that it is a cardinal sin to lie to the American people about war.
Partisanship is a version of narcissism.
In downtown San Francisco, the Commonwealth Club's Inforum curates events that bring you face to face with the world's changemakers.
1/3 of the wage gains that women have made since the 1960s were made as a result of the birth control pill.
Twitter is a technology that I don't think we've seen before in this world.
Since 1903, the most innovative leaders have come to the Commonwealth Club to share their vision.
Sharing cars, sharing their homes, sharing. A shared dream, a shareable American dream. That could work.
You each can play a role in helping us chart a better future.
Housing and health and education and policy all live close to the surface in us when our children are murdered. It's all the same story.
We bring together the visionaries shaping the emerging trends in technology.
It was a combination of Instant and Telegram. It was the idea that you could take a moment in time and you could capture it and you could just send it out and broadcast it with the entire world.
I just threw the site together in about a week when I was at school.
Oh, great.
We've got angels, we've got incubators, we've got accelerators, we've got seed funds, we've got crowdfunding.
We eat, we drink.
One of our first dates ever, we pickled like 100 pounds of herring and made 300 pounds of sauerkraut.
Wow. Yay!
We never shy away.
75% of the people of this country want universal health care and expect it. And damn it, let's go.
Concentrated, deep, slow, loving, tender, passionate sex.
Whether you want to be on the cusp of current events or feast on pop culture.
I should have a great time writing it. I should write a book that is as fun as any party I'd be skipping.
Inform events are fun and action-packed.
I have an anthropology scarf that does that twisty thing, so.
Come feed your mind and soul and celebrate the future with Inform.
I love San Francisco, and every time I come back here, I remember that this is the only city in America that has magic.
Hi everyone, I'm Crystal Contreras and I'm the director of Inforum. Welcome to today's program, True Life Lessons with Loni Love. Loni is a comedian, co-host of Fox's daytime talk show The Real, and author of the new book, I Tried to Change So You Don't Have to, True Life Lessons. She's in conversation with Bay Area-based speaker and writer LaRon Barton. If you'd like to ask either of them a question during this program, you can do that in either the chat or comment section of the live stream. The Commonwealth Club has temporarily suspended in-person events, but to keep you informed during this pandemic, we're going full speed ahead with a full slate of live online programs. Most of these conversations are currently free to the public, so we do ask that you consider donating to help us continue our work. Please visit us at commonwealthclub.org/online to learn more about our virtual programming, and you can also text the word DONATE to 415-329-4231 during this program. Now, please join me in welcoming LaRon Barton and Loni Love to Inforum.
Thank you, Crystal. Hello and welcome to today's virtual program with Inforum at the Commonwealth Club. My name is LaRon Barton, and I'm a writer, speaker, and activist. I'm pleased to be in conversation with Loni Love. Loni has had a long career in Hollywood as a comedian and co-host of Fox's The Real, and today she's joining us to talk about her untraditional path to success. Her new memoir, I Tried So You Don't Have to, chronicles Loni's journey in the entertainment industry and how learning to love herself was the missing piece in unlocking her true potential. Let's get started. Lonnie, thank you for joining us today.
Hello, LaRon, and thank you to the Commonwealth Club for this time.
Oh man, like thank you for coming by. Like I just want to say, like I'm a fan. I've watched The Real a couple times. Like y'all be going in on men, but it's but it's all good.
It's funny. It's just truthful. It's not
Really?
so much.
Okay.
We're not that bad, but it's truthful.
You know, like sometimes when I watch the show, I'm like, man, like they be going in, but then after I kind of reflect and I say to myself, I'm like, okay, so sometimes men can be a little trifling like that, but
the purpose is to always start a conversation. It's not, and it's the opinion. It's not definitely the truth or something. It's just to start a conversation. That's all.
I can dig that. So now, let's talk about your book. I Tried So You Don't Have to. First off,
I tried to change so you don't have to.
Exactly. Yes, ma'am. I apologize for that.
It's okay.
I liked the book because it was an easy read. I mean, I found myself breezing through it, and I darn near finished it in 2 days. It was very funny, but it was also informative, and it really kind of brought us into your life. The book opens with you at the Daytime Emmys. How did it feel to be there with your co-host after 5 years working on The Real?
I never imagined growing up as a little girl in Detroit that the shows that I watched and people holding the trophy and saying, this is for you, Ma. I never would. You couldn't have told me that would be me. And so in the book, I talk about the feeling of winning an Emmy. As a matter of fact, I have it right here.
Nice. Bring it out.
It's like, and I just want to thank everyone for this moment. And it was like, and when you watch on television, you're like, why are they crying? And it's like, wow, I know why they cry now, because it took a lot to get that. And it's not about accolades. It's more about the work that it took to get to this point. And then your peers are saying, you know what, we like what you did. And we just want to acknowledge that. So that was more the feeling for me, winning the Emmy, that here it was, a diverse show that was built to give a diverse conversations, give America another view of life. And, our peers said, you know what, the show's okay. We like the show. So that was a lot. And I talk about that a lot. And I talk about what it took to make a show like The Real, and why The Real is an important show like all other diverse voices right now, especially right now.
Right. One interesting thing about The Real is that it's filled with women who are not white. We have Black women. We have I know, right? Crazy. We have Black women. We have Latinx women. We have Asian women. How important was that for you to be a part of a show like that?
Initially, I was always trying to get my own show, and I talk about that. Like, I want my own show.
Right.
But
she want everything.
Well, there's a reason why you want your own show. But when it was presented to me, the Real was presented to me, it was presented as, this is something that is needed, and it's something that we think that you could really help to be a part of. But I really initially, and people will find out in the book, I initially was just there just helping them out.
Sure.
Because I had a production deal with Telepictures. So basically I was, trying to get my own show. But then they came up with this idea and developed it. And then they were like, well, we want about 4 or 5 women. Why don't you just come in and sit and do a chemistry chemistry? And I was like, and so in your mind, you think, well, let me just make them happy. Let me go sit down and sit in there and just help them out. And some of everybody came in the chemistry read. And when you do a chemistry read, you're sitting at a table, it's dark, and they're just mixing and matching people. What I didn't know was that we would be mixing and matching for like 10 hours. And I'm sitting there. So, because you're trying to get chemistry.
Right.
And we had we had so many people. It's like we had reality show stars, we had actresses, we had child stars, we had everybody that was a woman of color, I would say just about came through there.
Wow. And I mean, chemistry isn't something that you can just manufacture, right? I mean, like it's either there or it's not.
Right. Right. It's either there or it's not. There's some people, they feel like they can talk. They feel, yes, this is a talk show, I can talk. And I found out they couldn't. It's like, woo, girl,
It's not as easy as it looks, right?
Yeah, it's not as easy as it looks. And that's why you have the chemistry test. So out of the chemistry test, they came up with, the set of girls that they thought would work best together. And that's how it actually came to be.
Okay. So now in the first chapter of the book, I mean, off the rip, it shows how ambitious you were. Coming from the projects in Detroit and starting your own grocery service, you talked about how it was a different route for you to get to Hollywood. Can you tell us about that and why you went that route?
Well, you got to remember, I grew up during the crack era, LaRon.
Sure. Yes,
And during
ma'am.
the crack era, I was in the projects. It was a very sad community because there wasn't a lot of money, there weren't a lot of jobs, and then boom, here comes crack. And crack for about 2 years, and I talk about it, is there, and it's providing opportunities for people.
Right.
And then what happens is that then the adults start getting the children involved, the teenagers, the
Right.
13-year-olds, the 14-year-olds, because at the time the laws were that, if you were a teenager, you would just go to juvenile if you got caught with drugs. So they were recruiting heavily, and I didn't want to be a part of that,
Right.
And so I needed to make some money. And then one day it came to me, it was cold, the winters in Detroit can be like bad. And there was senior citizens in my building that couldn't go to the store. And so my mom made me go for one of them. And I did it and gave him the groceries. And then he gave me $1. And I was like, what's this for? He said, for doing this for me. And I was like, and then it hit me. I can make money. And so I was Uber before, I was Uber Eats before Uber Eats even started. You know what I'm saying? And so then that's when I realized, wow, I can make money by doing this. And so then I started, making money, and it felt good, even though I wasn't making the money like the Dope Boys was making,
Right.
but I had my own thing. And so that's how that came to be. And it was just, it also gave me delight in, first of all, I was making my own money, and I was also helping people. And so that was important to me.
Absolutely. Like there's a line that I love in the book where it goes, that spam is not worth a slip and fall. And I just cracked up because I was like, man, she's out here hustling for real.
That was an advertising. I'm like, hey, don't do that. Let the youngins get it for you. So yeah, but it was a very creative time for me. But it also allowed me to make a little bit of money, which was good.
Sure.
One
of the parts of during your chapter where you talked about the crack era and you talked about how you would see 15-year-old guys roll around in very expensive cars. And I guess there was someone who saw you, with your shopping cart, and you thought he was trying to buy your business from you, but he wasn't. And the little guy Willie that you had a crush on, he kind of saved you in a sense. Can you talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, my crush was Willie. Oh, I just loved Willie. And you got to remember, like I said back then, they were recruiting as heavily with the boys.
Right.
And so the thing I also want people to realize in this book is that I tell my story, but I also have levity in it, because if I didn't put levity in this book, it would just, you would be crying throughout the whole book. So I didn't want that. So, but I can remember, I had my business going, and I was, doing my thing, and I had regular customers. And Willie, who was my crush, I didn't know that he had got involved in that whole situation with one of the Dope Boys. And one day I was, pulling my wagon, and he stopped in his Mercedes Benz, and Willie was in the other passenger seat. And he was like, yo, whatever he said. And he was telling me, because what he wanted me to do was deliver drugs, because he
Right.
saw how successful that I was doing. And I'm so innocent, I'm a big girl with glasses. Nobody's going to suspect me. So he's basically trying to recruit me. But in my mind, I'm thinking he's trying to cut in on my business. And I'm like, my goodness, don't try to cut in on my business.
Right,
And he's
yeah.
like, what are you talking
I'm
about?
getting this money over, I'm over here.
Right. So I'm like 13, 14 years old. Don't try to get on this. Okay. But, Willie, knowing how I am and who I was, and in his attempt to protect me, kind of diffused all of that and said, she a nerd. She
Right.
don't know she's crazy. And that's just the love that,
Right.
that we had within the community, of trying to protect each other, even though we were under dire circumstances.
Yeah, no, like that was real cool, because like at the time, you maybe had thought that, is he dissing me, but it was like a blessing in disguise, though.
Exactly. It was definitely, my feelings was hurt. I was like, is he hurting my feelings? And then when I look back, he was just trying to get the guy to drive on away,
Right.
and leave me alone.
Yes,
So he
ma'am.
was like, oh, she's nerd. Look at her. Look at her fat knees. I was
Fat
like,
knees.
Willie, for real? I think my knees are sexy. What's happening?
No, so no, one thing like that I have to ask you. Oh, and by the way, you guys, in the book, like after each chapter, she has these little, I guess you call them rules, or list. And one of the things that you put, and I'm still trying to I'm scratching my head about this, is like, was it like two slices of government cheese, some ketchup, and some Fritos to make some spaghetti. I'm like, that's got to be some Detroit stuff, because I'm like, I've never heard of that before.
Oh yeah. We were very inventive in Detroit. The list, after every chapter, is there a list of things that pertains to that chapter.
Right.
And like
right.
I said, originally in the book, there are some stories that are happy. There's some stories that are sad. I wanted the reader to leave with some point of levity. So that's the reason for the list. And so what you're talking about was like the Brewster Douglas survival guide.
Right.
And one of them was how you make something out of nothing. So you put everything together, and then you can make you some Detroit style macaroni and cheese with no macaroni and no cheese.
Yeah. I was like, wow, all right. Hey though, but like it's that's one thing that I noticed throughout the book, is like it was almost like you're making something out of nothing, and you just kept going. I mean, it's for me, so I've always been in love with the tales of people coming from the bottom and making it. And throughout the book, we see you go to high school, we see you get the job at General Motors, then you go to college. Like being born in the projects, like was that did you just have that drive that where you just wanted more, or I'm like, where did that come from?
I have no idea, LaRon, where it came from. I think I was forced into situations. I think that's
Sure.
what people are going to read about. At a certain point, around 16 or 17, I was kicked out of the house by my mom. So I basically
Right.
had to force myself to get myself together, and ended up getting a job at General Motors. And from there, the story goes where I met a mentor, and my life actually changed.
Right.
And I think at that point is when I started to realize that even in your darkest moments, sometimes you have to let the process play itself out. And when you let the process play itself out, something comes to help you get out of that dark spot if you're open to it. So here I was, 17 years old, sleeping in my car. I was working at General Motors. I had graduated, and I didn't know anything about college. I didn't know, whatever, and I didn't know where my life was going to lead. I just thought maybe I would be building these truck doors. I was building
Sure.
500 truck doors a day. I was pasting carpet on the truck doors, and there was glue all over the place. And I messed those truck doors up. But there was someone that came to me as a father figure that actually led me out of it. And so it's a wonderful story of mentorship, and it shows the importance of us, taking care of one another. And I try
Sure.
to pay it forward to this day.
Absolutely. I read that that you are a mentor to young women in the STEM in the sort of the STEM job market. How did you come to start doing that?
Michelle Obama really got me into it.
Oh, okay,
When
right
she
on.
realized that I was an
Move,
engineer, she's like,
Michelle.
"Wait, you what? You an engineer?" I was like, "Yeah, I know. It seems impossible, but I have an engineering degree." And so when she was as first lady, she developed this wonderful STEM program. And
Sure.
so I started getting involved with that, and, being outspoken and letting young girls know the importance of, science and technology and engineering, because, and there's a story of how I got into engineering, because, people, you don't normally see a lot of women. And so
Not
I
at
think it's
all.
important, even if you're not in the field anymore, to still, support the field and support young girls. And so that's what I do. So I have to thank Michelle Obama for getting me into that.
Right. No, I like that story because when I was probably my favorite story was in the book is when you met Mr. Arnold and you guys sort of clicked over the autobiography of Malcolm X, which is one of my all-time favorite books, and he encouraged you, and so now that you're doing that, it's just everything kind of comes together as a circle.
Yeah, it's a lovely story of how I met Mr. Arnold, who the readers will find out is my mentor. And uh, you know, when I was reading the autobiography of Malcolm X, I was trying to find myself, and I didn't know.
Sure.
So I was just looking for, different materials to read. It's just, and he happened to, see it on the line, because, most of the time I wasn't working anyway, I was reading. and, so, and when he saw it, that struck up a friendship. And I think that that was a sign that he knew that I was searching for something. And he really helped me to at least get some focus in my life. And that's why it's always important to look at signs. I look, for
Absolutely.
signs, especially with young people, because if they need help, sometimes it's just a simple sign like a book, and then you can strike up a conversation, and you never know what that may lead to.
Right. Yeah. No. You definitely have to follow the signs. That's something that I really identify with myself. Rewinding a little bit. One thing that I read in the book is that you started or you began to sort of like develop your comedy skills in the third grade. I believe it was imitating Mrs. Kilpatrick. uh, can you talk about how you sort of fell into comedy and how you realized that you like to make people laugh?
When I was in school, I was a big girl, and I was so big, people thought I was a substitute a lot of times, right?
Come on.
So,
You can't be
so
doing that.
no, it's like, is that the suck? Who is that big girl? It's like, I'm a kid. I was some big old tall girls, didn't have my motor skills right, and all this. It's like, but I was always the big girl. And
Right.
so Mrs. Kilpatrick was the teacher. And when she would leave, she, would put the biggest person in charge, because those kids was bad.
Right.
And even though I was this big girl and I was this statuesque, and I, thought I was, I was really scared of those kids because they were bad. And so one time, she had us in the classroom, and she told me to watch the class, and they were just all over the place. And I'm thinking in my mind, how am I going to get their attention? How am I going to get them to respect me? How am I going to get them to listen and be quiet and don't tear up this classroom so I don't get in trouble? And then I just started imitating Mrs. Kilpatrick. And that was my first taste of comedy. And it was the most exhilarating feeling because first of all, my crush Willie was there, and he was
Right.
like, "Girl, you
Really?
crazy." And I was like, dang, I got Willie's attention. And then, and everybody just started laughing. It was just, and I would just, like, class, and they just, it's just this feeling. I was like, wow, you can keep people's attention. And it felt so powerful. And I think that was my first taste of comedy, definitely.
Got it. So now, ask you this: like, what is it about comedy for you that that sort of moves you, that gets Lonnie Love?
Well, I didn't have a body for a stripper,
Oh,
and I couldn't sing, and I can't hold a note.
right.
But it goes all the way back to the Miss Kilpatrick days of
Right.
seeing the look on people's faces, the children laughing. And these are children that were, they were poor. They were, a lot of their parents were on drugs. And so what we call bad was really them acting out.
Sure.
And so to see that I was able to give them some levity, even for that short amount of time, it just carried over into my life. And so now when I started doing comedy, I started seeing that you could have people's attention and you could let them escape for a minute. And, I don't know if you've ever been on a stage, but when I'm on a comedy stage, and especially a small club, it's maybe about 300 or 400 people,
Right.
I can see them. I always some comics like it dark. I don't like it dark. I like to keep the lights just a little bit so I can see their faces because I want to see them laughing and I want to see their expressions. And it's the most beautiful thing to me. And that's what keeps me in the comedy. That's what actually got me to taking it seriously. Right. And pursuing it because I've said, I felt like it was a reason for me doing this. If I can, help people forget about their problems for a minute and make them laugh, I think it'll be worth it. And so that's what really made me get into comedy.
Awesome. When you came to LA, you talk about how you were you would work, and your days off, or even at night, you would hit the open mics, and you would every couple months you would just call in sick. I mean, you came to LA with a plan. I mean, I was like, damn, like she's really on it like she wanted. Talk about how the journey as far as coming to LA, hitting that comedy circuit. You talked about going from the Chitlin circuit to the Laugh Factory.
Once I decided to actually pursue comedy, because before that I got my degree and I graduated, but pursuing comedy, I was unhappy being a traditional person. I had a good job. I was an engineer, and I had dental benefits. Oh, as a Black woman, you got dental benefits. You done came up.
Gotta get them teeth straight.
Yeah, you know what I mean. So the thing was, okay, you got a good job. You got this boyfriend. Now you got to get married. And for some reason, as a 22-year-old female working in a culture, it was a culture shock, first of all. And there's supposed to be these points in your life when you're like, okay, now it's time for you to take the next step, which is to get married. And I just didn't feel that. And there's a bunch of stories in there about why and what I was going through with my ex-boyfriend and his mama trying to make me a Black Stepford wife and all this kind of stuff. But one day I was just so depressed. I was so despondent that I was just driving around Los Angeles, and I ended up at the Comedy Store, and I was watching a comedy show, and there were all these guys doing comedy, but there was only one female. And I was like, wow, why is there only just one? And then that's when I started really researching, because I really kind of started doing stand-up in college, and I talk about that for money, but I never pursued it out, because the whole thing is when you're Black in this country, you need to get that degree because you never know what's going to happen. So I'm like, let me get that degree because I need a job. I need to take care of myself and everything. And I'm, so that was the whole plan. But I was, got the job, had the dental benefits, and was still just sad, lonely, depressed. And then that's when I realized, let me start going back into comedy and performing. And so that's what I started doing. From that day, and you got to realize with comedy, you have to go bare bones. Nobody knows your name, so you got to try to get your name out there. So you had to go to open mics. So I still needed to work, and I was working my engineering job full time. And then at night, I would go out to all the clubs. And when you're not known, they make you wait. So back then, they would make you wait till like 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock in the morning just to get on stage, just to get 5 minutes. And that's what I did. I did that for like 3 years, because what I was doing was building up my name. I was building up an act. And I would go to work in the day, but then I would stay out. So I basically was burning a candle at both ends, but that's what I had to do, you know, to build myself up. And I talk about that a lot, you know, and that's why I really wanted this book, because I wanted to show people, because a lot of people know me from The Real, or they may know me from Chelsea Lately. They know me from, you know, some movies I've been in. They don't realize the whole journey that it took to get here, and why I get so emotional when I think about it.
Right. No. One of my another of my favorite lines is that you said, "Getting booed ain't the worst thing in life. You can come back from that." And so, someone who doesn't do comedy, I'm thinking like, yeah, like if they boo you, it's like, oh man, like, you know what I mean? How did you sort of build up that I guess that sort of armor?
Well, it's all trial and error. That's why you have to do like, for a good, I would say a good 6-7 years, I was doing a lot of road work. And in that quote, when I say getting booed isn't the worst thing is the silence. So if somebody's booing you, you can heckle back and get the crowd back on your side. But when you tell the joke and don't nobody do, everybody like this, that's like, that's death. Cause you can't, it's like you just standing there. That's worse. So I would rather for you to boo me, because I can come back on that, you know what I mean? But when you just silent, I remember when I was first starting, and it was up in Michigan somewhere, and I really needed that money. It was a college. I can't remember the college, but it was a college. And when I tell you, those kids did not understand nothing I was saying. They was like, and it was
Stone face.
It was a stone face, and it's nothing you could do. That is the worst thing, and that's where that comes from. So in order to avoid all of that, you have to do the road. I want to say this too. They try to say that women are not funny. That's not it. You don't see a lot of women doing stand-up. So because you don't see as many doing stand-up, you think they're not funny. No, because it's really hard. You know, I was a road comic. I still do the road, but I was a road comic, like just straight for, like I said, about 6-7 years. And the issue with women is that, you know, you got to remember, I'm like 25. Those are baby making years. Those are years when you're supposed to be developing your relationships. So you go on the road every weekend. It's hard to have a relationship. If you have a baby as a woman, you know, you got to stay off the road for 9 months. So it's not that women are not funny. You just don't see a lot of women, you know, doing stand-up comedy, because it's just a different type of beast, you know.
Right. Do you remember a show? I mean, like, well, let me ask this. Like, was there ever a show that you had that was terrible? You know, you kind of bombed and you thought, okay, maybe this isn't what I need to be doing.
Never. I never had a show that I never, like, you got to understand, once you start doing comedy, you start developing comedy friends, and you become part of the comedy community. And that is the sweetest, strongest, strangest community ever, because we're a bunch of people that are trying to make people laugh. And so, you know, the thing is, we become each other's support. So they're going to be nice when you bomb so bad, you know, especially it depends on rooms. Because I was on the Chitlin Circus, there were always different types of rooms, because you're trying to get the people in. So there's one room, I'll never forget, where the host would tell people, if you don't like the comment, just jingle your keys.
What?
And so it's like the keys, you know what I mean? And so the thing was, you just hoping people don't, you know, don't jingle your keys. Please don't jingle keys.
That's like the Apollo, you know what I mean?
Yes.
Like, you're like Sandman,
Yes.
like.
Yes. So it's like, you gotta understand when you're going through that, it's like anxiety. It's like, and what you learn to do because you got your comedy community. Like if they was jingling keys on you, you was just like, you know what? What's up, keys? You joke about it. That's when you joke about it, and you take it on the chin. And what you do is you get back up there the next night. And that's the thing that I had to learn is that different audiences are different. One night they're laughing at the joke. Then the next night they looking at you like this. I mean, the famous Steve Martin said what made him stop doing stand-up was Friday second show. That Friday second show in America, people are tired from work. They usually drunk, they sleepy. So that is usually the hardest show in the country. And if you can make the Friday second show audience laugh, you really are a good comic.
Okay. Is there any particular venues or cities that you love performing more than others?
Any venue where they actually pay you.
Okay. All right.
At the end of the night, because when you on that chitlin circuit, there be some nights the promoter come to you, let me holler at you for a minute. Whenever they say that, whenever they say, let me holler at you for a moment, you're not about to get paid.
Oh my God. I'd be so disappointed.
It's in the book too. It's all these like road stories that we, because what we would do is different people would try to, make a show and we try to find a promoter. And one time we mistakenly didn't know. We went to Arizona and the guy, we trusted, the guy that made the show, but we didn't know he was working for this guy. The guy named was Face. I should have known when he said Face that there was a problem. This dude ended up being like a pimp. And he wanted to not only be in the pimp services, but he wanted to try to, become a comedy promoter.
Like an actual pimp.
Yeah, no.
Okay.
Yeah, actual pimp. Like we all flew it was about 5 of us. We flew to Arizona, and the way I knew he was a pimp was because we had a hotel room. Knocked at the door. Here comes this lady, and I was like, she was like really rough, like, and she was like, Face said, get downstairs. I said, wait a minute, who is Face? He's like, Face, that's Daddy. I'm like, wait, what? And so I'm looking at my other, and I'm the only female. And so we get down there because the actual show was at the hotel, and we get down there, and nobody is at the show because he didn't know how to promote it. But he thought he was gonna, because everybody thinks putting on a comedy show is easy.
Right.
So ultimately,
no flyers out.
No, they no flyers. I think he had one flyer. I was like, can't you get your girls to pass out flyers? What happened? Face. And what was funny about that whole situation was we were all together, and I learned so much from that situation. I talk about it in the book because we were in Arizona. So when we went to the airport, we didn't get paid because there wasn't nobody in there. We went to the airport. Wow. We had one-way tickets. So we didn't have tickets back home. Okay. So luckily, because I was still working my day job, I had to use my credit card, and I got everybody back home.
Wow, that is. But I mean, you've obviously paid your dues, though. I mean, that's just stories on the road to getting to where you are. Lonnie, one of the most important points in the book is, you're in Los Angeles, and after months of dieting and exercise, you realize that the women you looked up to, like Oprah and Moms Mabley, my fault, didn't gain success by conforming. They broke down barriers and they became successful on their own terms. Can you talk about that one moment in your life when you realized this?
I was, this was in part of the book where I was auditioning and at the time in the early 2000s, Hollywood was really different where, a woman like me who's tall, who's dark skinned, who's curvy, there were only 1 or 2 parts for us, like with one line, where's your coffee? Here's your coffee, sir. And then you go in the audition, can you say a little bit sassy?
You wrong for that one, but it's like
No, but it's true. I mean, literally one line, and that's what. And so you got to remember, I'm trying to audition for parts, but then as an engineer, I'm going, what's the issue? I need to solve this.
Sure.
So I thought solving would be changing.
Right.
I thought, okay, I'm gonna lose a whole bunch of weight. I'm gonna get me a blonde wig, and then I'm gonna take me some French classes. And when I tell you it was a mess, it was a pure mess. But what I was trying to do was conform to what I thought Hollywood wanted.
Sure.
And it wasn't gonna work for me because that was not me. And luckily, I did have, at the time of coming up, I had the Moniques, I had, Oprahs to look up to. But I didn't know their fight until later. Right. So you got to remember, because I didn't know them, I can just only see whatever's being put out there. So I'm trying to get into this system. And, these people are looking at me like, we can only use you for this. And so at that moment, that's when I realized either I'm just going to accept the fact of who I am and accept my flaws. And that's why I tell people, flaws, you can fix them, or sometimes flaws are meant for you to stand out. And so with me being the person that I was, the plus size, dark skinned girl, later on in life, I just started accepting it. And I was able to use it to make me the person that I am today. So I tell anybody, if you think you got a flaw, you want to fix it, fine. If not, be proud of your flaw. If you got a big nose, take side profile pictures. This is my nose. This is who I am. Accept it, embrace it, because it's going to make you stand out. Look at Barbara Streisand. Look at her nose. What I mean? We know that's her. But if she would have changed it for somebody else, who knows what it would have done? Maybe it would have hurt her voice. Maybe it wouldn't have been her. Right. So I think, I had to learn that. And that's what I learned in the book, is to learn to accept flaws and let those flaws make you stand out.
Okay. Now, so we're in a time right now where, racism is at the forefront of everyone's mind. It's one of the two main conversations. I would say racism as well as COVID-19. In the book, you talk about an incident where you were with a friend, and there was an encounter with the police, and that could have went left fast, and maybe we would not be doing this interview. When I read that part, Lonnie, I just thought to myself, I was like, darn, like, when Black people will come in contact with the police, it could just go bad. And I thought about George Floyd. Can you talk about that incident and how you feel about the current conversation of race we're having right now?
You know what? The thing is that when I initially wrote this book, George Floyd was living.
Right.
Ahmaud Arbery was living. Breonna Taylor was living. And it's funny because now, if I hadn't have talked about this incident, I wouldn't be able to show people that everyday Black people that are just innocent, that's just, working or going to school, they can get caught up in a situation. And so I think that story right now is the whole purpose of this book. And at the time, I didn't know that would be the purpose of it. I was just telling my story. And that's why it's important for people to tell stories. Basically, I was 19 years old. I was working in a grocery store in Houston because I was going to school at Prairie View, Texas. One night, me and my friend who worked along with me decided we were going to go to the club after we got off work. Went to the club. I got my cheetah pants on. Woo, I'm looking good. Then we say, oh, girl, after the club, you've been drinking, go get something to eat. So we go to eat, and it's a cafeteria style place where you get your food and you get a tray and you just get your food and then you get your drink. Well, she's ahead of me and I'm riding with her. And I look and I hear this commotion and I see this big white cop grabbing her, and it was a security guard grabbing her. And I was like, whoa, that's my ride. Where's he taking her? And he takes her in the kitchen. So I'm like freaking out, like, what is going on? So I, step into the kitchen. He looks at me. He says, "You're arrested." I said, "Arrested for what?" He said, "You're trespassing." I said, What are you talking about? You stepped in the kitchen. Now, understand this. I grew up in the Brewster Projects, but we ain't never called the police. That's one thing. In the projects, the number one rule, don't call the police unless somebody dead. Other than that, we gonna handle it. So I don't know about the police, okay? My mother never gave me a talk about the police. So I'm going down here in college, and this is my first time dealing with this situation of being arrested. My friend, I said, "Well, what did she do?" He said, "She put soda in a water cup."
Right.
I'm like, soda in a water cup. Now, we 19-year-old Black women. And he handcuffed us. He called the Houston police. The police car came down and put us in the back. And in hindsight, I look at it and I go, I'm glad that I was with her, because if I wasn't, I don't know what those cops could have done to her. Because when I looked at that one cop, both of them were white, but when I looked at one, and me, I'm just, I'm talking. I'm like, we didn't do, because when you get arrested and you don't know what's going on, you literally were confused. I was literally confused. I was scared. I was confused. I'm like, "Sir, we didn't do anything. She put soda in a water cup." He just looked, he said, "They all say that." And it was so dismissive. It was so insulting. And it was just like, you got to understand and I say in the book, in Detroit, I grew up in this cocoon of Blackness. This was my first taste of breaking out of that cocoon. We were took to the booking station, and it was amazing what I saw, LaRon. I mean, this booking station was nothing but people of color, and they were mainly males. And I can remember the picture in my mind of seeing the brothers walking around. They had on shackles.
Right.
And and I talk about it, but it's a feeling I never forget. And so, because she had put soda in a water cup, that was a petty theft.
Right.
So it was a misdemeanor. But trespassing is a felony.
Wow, I did not know that.
No, I did not either. And so I didn't even know what a felony was. I'm 19. So they put me in, the area with other felons. And I talk about it in the book, and I bring levity to it. But they put me in it, the thing that I want the reader to understand is that if we were two 19-year-old white girls, more than likely, we would not have been arrested for a $1 cup of soda. We would have even been told to pay for the soda, or we would have just had a slap on the wrist. But that man saw that we were Black, and he did that to us. And what I want people to understand is that I was in college. I had to get bailed out. I was a college student with no money. So I had to, find the money to bail myself out. My friend didn't have anybody to call. She had to call her parents. Her parents had to come down from Dallas.
Wow, that's a drive.
And get her out. So she had to spend like 2 days in jail. I spent about 18 hours. And in that 18 hours, you don't know what could have happened. Luckily, I got out of it, but it was really a situation that did not need to happen. And I know you could say, well, she shouldn't have put the soda in the water cup, but she was a kid, and it was a $1 soda. So why would you put somebody in jail for a $1 soda? You wouldn't have done that if those were two white girls. And that is what Americans are going through. Black Americans are saying, we just want to be treated equally. That's all. That's all. You don't put people in jail for a soda. You don't do that. But at the time when I wrote it, LaRon, I didn't think that it would be an example of what Black people go through every day with discrimination and racism. This is just one of the many examples. And that's why it's important for people to read the stories of people of color so that they can understand we're not whining. We're telling you, you know what could have happened in that jail? It was all kind of stuff. And then you read about it. You read about what, you know, could have happened to me if I hadn't gotten out. They actually put me on a bus to transfer me. And then I started freaking out because I was like, what if nobody can find me? You know, and then I was put into this room in the other facility. And I was like, what if a fire breaks out? I started having all kind of anxieties and things that should not have happened over a $1 soda that I didn't even take. That is the issue that we're dealing with in this country when we talk about discrimination, when we talk about, you know, bias and racism. That's what we're talking about.
Yeah, for me, like this, the fact that you were just arrested for something trivial, and I was like, wow, like, you know, I mean, if the cop could have pushed it further, but I mean, I'm really happy that you added that to the book, Lonnie, because I mean, it, you know, even though the book is about your journey, it's full of levity and laughter. It, you know, it has that serious center, and that's one of the stories that just sort of makes it stick.
Definitely.
One quick question before we get to the to audience Q&A. What are your thoughts on as far as the COVID-19, the coronavirus, how this has affected you, and what we should do to kind of keep ourselves safe?
Well, you see, we're talking to each other through these contraptions.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, you know, I've lost the ability to be with an audience. But I can't look at this selfishly. I'm more concerned with the fact that COVID is attacking, especially people of color, more than anything, and that we as a country, a lot of us don't give a damn.
Right.
And we need to stop that. And
Absolutely.
we need to have some federal mandated policies to help us to get over this, because it's spiking and it's out of control. And so what I'm trying to do is just lend my voice as a person who has a platform, first of all, to help people and tell them, hey, you know, stay in the house, be socially distanced, wear your mask if you go out, you know. But also, you know, I try to communicate with the people. I do IG Live. I do Facebook Lives just to give people an hour just to, you know, get away. I think when you're an entertainer, you're always an entertainer, whether you're going to be, you know, on a stage or, you know, on Zoom. I think that it's important for us to be there for each other, but we really have to knock this out. And we really have to start talking about this.
Okay.
Seriously.
So now, Lonnie, let's get to some audience questions.
All right.
Crystal, she says, I recently saw you on RuPaul's Drag Race. It was a great episode. Did you have as much fun as it looked?
Oh my goodness. RuPaul's Drag Race was so much fun. When they said women can't do drag, that's not true. They had me all in drag, and they put on these hips and a corset. And, you know, I always look at, you know, the thing about what I always loved about RuPaul's Drag Race is that was a show that's not supposed to succeed. That was a show that, you know, nobody wants to see that stuff. And look at it. It's an Emmy award-winning show. It's just, I feel like it's a place where I can be accepted, and people that want to, you know, do drag, it lets you become a different type of person. And so I just had a ball. And I knew I was going to lose to Vanessa Williams. She a pageant queen. I was like, how y'all going to do that to me? You know? Yeah. So, but it was
she's
really
got
fun.
experience though.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. I knew I was going to lose, but I raised money for Dress for Success. And I just had a great time. And I want to go back to judge, hopefully, one day.
Okay. Nick asks, what's your favorite part of working with each of your co-hosts on The Real?
You know, everybody is different. What I like about working with the girls is that they're, you know, they know how to come together. And I want to say this about The Real. We are women that choose to work together, you know, and that's important, especially because people think that women can't get along, women can't work. That is not true. Tamara and I are probably the closest because she just forces me to be with her. But but she's so spiritual and loving, and that's what I like about her. And I lean on her when I need that. When I need some more spiritual guidance, I can lean on that. When I need fashion advice, I lean on Jeannie because she's so stylish and she knows about fashion. She knows about the cuts, and all the latest stuff. So I always lean on her for that. And then Munchkin is the party girl. Like, even though she's just gotten married, she still knows how to throw a good party. She's into family. So, as a matter of fact, she just made me go to a Bible study a few days ago.
Okay.
Yeah, a Zoom Bible study. She texted me. She said, come to the Bible study. I'm like, okay, I'm gonna come to the Bible study. Well, I didn't know I was gonna be part of a panel. And so I'm like, they're like, Lonnie, can you say? I'm like, I am the biggest heathen out here. But you don't want me talking about
me?
So, but definitely each girl brings something different, and I lean on them for different things.
Okay. James asked, how has comedy served you in these traumatic times?
Whew, I'm telling you, it's sometimes you gotta laugh to keep from crying. That's what the way the phrase goes. Comedy has really helped me because some with the news being so heavy at times, I have to just automatically, I tend to try to think differently. And that's just my sense of humor. And then, so that helps me, that gives me balance to get through. And so what I try to do is I try to, on my platforms, balance and use that to help other people. Because I know these are heavy times for us. So, when it's time to be serious, I'm serious. But then I know sometimes it's time to take a break. And that's what I try to do. And I try to give that levity and pass it on to people so that we can get through this.
Okay. And one more question. Leon asked, what was the hardest part about putting your book together?
The hardest part was deciding what stories to put in and what stories to take out. Because I've been journaling since I was 10 years old. And I want anybody out there listening to journal. And when I say journal, it ain't no excuse why you can't do it now. I mean, even if you don't write, you could just take your little voice notes. And in the morning, maybe when you wake up, say something. Or at night, how do you feel? Or get your little notebook and write down, just even if it's just a couple of lines about maybe what are you going to do today or how you're feeling. Because these are historic times. We need to record our stories. I've been doing this since I was 10 years old. And so I've had stories and I still have more stories. So it's probably going to be a second part to this book about my upbringing. And
awesome.
This is just, my story. And it just shows you that you can come from humble beginnings and you can be an Emmy-winning actress. That's what life is about. It's just funny.
Fantastic. It is an informed tradition to ask all of our speakers the following question. What is your 60-second idea to change the world, Lonnie? Let's hear it.
Oh my God, just 60 seconds to change the world?
Just 60 seconds. 1 minute.
Okay. My idea to change the world is I think that we all should be required to do some form of stand-up. Every person on this earth. Because when you do that, it's going to make you reflect on something and find some positivity and some levity in everything. So I think I would have everybody have to do a mandatory comedy set. It was just for 5 minutes. We give you like a week to come up with the material and then you have to do it. And I think people would think better and make this world a better place.
Will we hear the keys though? Like
I would be jiggling the keys on everybody. It's you, Arts. You suck. No. Be very encouraging. Yeah.
Okay. Fantastic. Well, thank you to Lonnie Love for joining us today at Inforum at the Commonwealth Club. Please be sure to pick up a copy of I Tried So You Don't Have To at your local bookstore. It's a really good book. If you'd like to watch more virtual programs or support the Commonwealth Club's efforts in making virtual programs, please visit commonwealthclub.org/online. I'm LaRon Barton. Thank you very much and stay safe.
Thanks, LaRon.
All right, Lonnie, be easy.